2006, Kathi was awarded the Catherine Gerfine Writing Fellowship at Sarah Lawrence College, which offered the opportunity to begin working seriously on her collection of literary snapshots. Kathi lives in Cold Spring with her husband, Pepe. They have 4 kids and one very big dog. Oh, I gotta say, wait a second. She's going to be reading Trading Happiness for Oil Changes. Did I get this wrong?
Yeah.
Kathy's going to be reading stuff about growing up in Jersey.
If you listen to the first piece and try to find a Christmas/snow correlation, there is one. There isn't one. It's just really about toupees. So I'll give you that little warning. But there is a correlation, obviously, to our desire to have kind of a theme of snow and Christmas in the second piece. Trading hair pieces for oil changes. I figure all daddies take their hair off at night. Not everybody's daddy has a velvet stand-up hairpiece stand in the shape of a head that the hair sits on until morning, like my daddy does. Not those cheap styrofoam kinds, like in the dusty, stale-smelling back room at Leo's barbershop. No way. My dad's hair stand is soft and fuzzy. Another thing about the fake head is that it doesn't have those stupid-looking eyes painted on it. They're not cheap, Freddie, these stands, Leo says, but they're classier than the rest, and they're better for the piece. Leo is my father's barber, and he insists there's nothing worse than taking a hairpiece off at night and having it slide right off the styrofoam holder. Nothing for the piece to cling to, Freddie, he says, swinging his arms in the air. Every night, my dad squints his eyes up real tight and yanks his stiff, shiny hair off of his head. He lets out a big ah once it is off. It's the same sound my mother makes when she takes her stockings off at the end of the day, just before she puts her apron on. On the nights when things are easy in our home, and I am happy to see my father walk through the front door, his uniform all greasy, still smelling of gasoline and broken cars, I follow him into the bathroom, sit on top of the toilet seat, and watch him tear the hair off of his head. I squint my eyes up too, and I usually get a chill. And the 3 lines of pink blisters that are left behind on his scalp from the sour-smelling glue and tape he uses to stick his hair on every morning make my stomach turn. They remind me of the way Lisa Antonelli's baby's brother's rear end looked when I saw her mom change his diaper. It was red and scary, and even though it looked a little like my dad's head, I didn't say anything, because I guess I thought that all daddies had those sore heads at night, and what was the person talking about it anyway? When the wigs get old and the hair all frayed at the ends, he calls Leo and orders a new one. I love when this happens because it means I get to keep the old ones for my dolls. I trim it and wash it and tie rubber bands onto it, practicing my braids and ponytails. The other thing that happens when a hairpiece gets old is Leo comes to the house and my dad gets to sit on a stool in the middle of the kitchen underneath the ceiling light. My mother drapes a towel around his shoulders, and Leo trims the soft gray hairs around his ears and holds little swatches of fake hair up to them to match the color. Leo, where does that hair come from anyway? I ask while helping my mother dip the veal from the egg to the breadcrumbs. She always makes dinner for Leo when he comes to the house. It's only right, she says. And my father nods and tells her not to forget to make the escarole salad with the crushed red pepper, because Leo likes that. 2 weeks before, when Leo took his old cutlass into the shop for an oil change, which was free for Leo because of the hairpieces, he said what a good cook my mother was. My dad liked that. It made him feel like a big shot. And loved it, and he loved it when Leo said in front of all the customers that day, Freddie, I'm telling you, that wife of yours, she can make meatballs out of cardboard. I figured that Leo didn't hear me over the frying oil, so I asked again, Leo, where'd you get the hair? From people who have too much, little lady, he says and winks at me. So they just give it to you? Do they cut it off themselves? Do they put it in a bag? Do they wash it first? Don't ask me any questions, doll, my dad says. And go get Daddy his cigarettes. And that was that. Off at night, on in the morning, like all daddies do. Snow, 1978. Oh, Madonna, look at it out there. It's a friggin' blizzard, for God's sake, my father said when he yanked open the heavy wooden front door that always stuck and looked through the screen at the shaky aluminum storm door. We kept the screen in all year long because my mother said no one gets enough fresh air anymore. Jesus, Freddie, it's really coming down, she said, shaking her head back and forth. I watched from the hallway as she stood next to him. The wind made the bottom of her blue velour robe sway right across her ankles. He draped his arm over her shoulder, which surprised me. It was not the kind of thing my father did very often. She breathed in the cold burst of frosty air. I need to get to the A&P before it gets any worse. I need to pick up some things. Besides, today's a good soup day. I'll make a nice pot of vegetable beef soup. My mother always said stuff like that. Stuff that made no sense the first time you heard it, but somehow you just grew to understand it perfectly. A good soup day. Of course. Of course it was. I secretly wished it was a good milkshake and pizza day instead. They made their way back into the kitchen, and my mother poured my father his coffee. I was already back in the kitchen eating my crisp and trying to figure out the answers to the riddles on the side of the box. My father added the milk to his coffee and stirred it hard and fast, and the spoon clinked on the inside of the cup. Some mornings I heard his clinking spoon from my bedroom. That's how I knew it was time to get up for school, and my father would be leaving for work soon. He liked to get to the station early, do his bookwork, and get ready for the customers who would be calling, needing help with flat tires and cars that wouldn't start. What are you, nuts? My father blurted out, adding his own burst of cigarette smoke to my mother's fresh air. You can't drive in this weather. He zipped up his jacket and blew his nose into the red bandana he kept in his back pocket. I'm closing the shop today. Nobody's coming out in this weather. Just give me a list. I'll go. And Kathy, you go get dressed. You're coming with me. It was as if the world stopped. Time stood still. My father and I hardly ever went places together. Just the two of us. It was always me and my mom. Like frickin' frack, she would say. It was on that day back in February '78 when I saw my father step foot into a grocery store for the very first time. I was 11. Sure, I heard stories from my mother about when I was a little baby. He sometimes picked up formula or diaper pens on his way home from work, but I never believed her when she told me that. It just seemed like it was maybe another one of those stories that made him out to be somebody he wasn't. Some grocery shopping daddy who wore soft, faded blue jeans, who listened to rock and roll music and read Dr. Seuss books to me at bedtime. The dad I knew wore either his gray work uniform during the day or flashy suits and shirts with big wide collars when he went out with his paisans to play cards. He listened to Sinatra and Jerry Vale and read only the Asbury Park Press at night, and that was always when we were eating dinner. So there we were on that cold, snowy day, me wheeling the cart down the empty aisles of the A&P, and him shuffling around looking like he was walking through the streets of China or Africa or some other faraway place. At first he looked like a lost puppy, but soon enough he seemed to find his way, and we shopped and we shopped. The snow was coming down harder and harder, but somehow it didn't matter to him. Not to me either. We picked through all of the greens, finding the freshest they had left. We searched the shelves of the meat department for exactly the kind of bones my mother wanted to use in her soup, because she said the bones are what give it the flavor. And we bought lots of stuff she didn't even put on the list. Root beer, black licorice, lupini beans, scotch pudding, hard salami, all the stuff he liked. And for the first time ever, I wondered, how did he know? It was all the stuff I liked, too.